content first time in 2021 with Gambit, and we're here to discuss the potential MMR averages of 82L kind of changing.
Should I be talking here? Sorry, hello?
Well, I was kind of introducing you a little bit, man. I was introducing you. Maybe it could have been done better. It could have
No,
been
it's fine,
done
it's fine.
better, but yeah, no. We should start kind of with the announcement. I was gonna go to display capture, kind of make sure everybody knows what we're talking about and announcements here. So I'm just gonna put that up on my screen. But Gambit knows more than I do on this. That is for sure, I think. But I think we have similar ideas, just maybe different ways to approach them slightly.
Yeah. I would say as far as like me knowing more, I just have a lot of free time. I may
Yeah,
not know more, but I probably read a bit more.
probably read a bit more. I've been reading the past few days. I didn't really want to get into it because I was undecided if I want to join 82L or not again. But
Mhm.
I'm gonna try this season to join a team. So now I care.
So now you care.
So essentially, Mad Max came out with a post back in February 13th, which is, I guess, only 3 days. It feels like a week from all the conversations everybody's having. Where for season 31, they want to update how each league runs from instead of having just a cap, a badge, now you go to an MMR average.
Yeah. So this is actually this may be like a little bit of background on this too. Is they've been talking about this for like a couple seasons. And they said there was going to be an order on some things that they've been doing, especially recently, like adding the double elimination option, and and then adjusting like stand-in regulations and whatnot. They said they wanted to actually do this first, um, like a long, long time ago when they were just listing out things they wanted to do in the coming seasons. And I don't know why this got held back, honestly, but now it's finally coming. So hopefully. I think it's a good change. I think it fixes a lot of the problems that they've tried to fix with other solutions in the past, again, such as like stand-in issues that they've had. I think this solves that. I I think that this is going to be a good change overall for kind of putting averages into brackets rather than just saying like an explicit cap. I think that again just kind of helps a little bit, but that's my biased take just before we start.
My biased take, by the way, is this is awesome. I just want to say I suggested this many seasons ago. Many seasons ago, I said maybe we need to do an average MMR, and
Yep.
we'll eventually get to why this is way better than before. Uh, uh, the current
After
system.
we get through information.
Yeah, after we give you the information, we're going to tell you why it's better, and you're gonna like it no matter what.
Well,
I'm just kidding. Listen, this video isn't to tell what the admins to do or tell you players, hey, back us. This video is to inform you why it's better. There will be some bias. I don't really see downsides to be. There's like one downside really, but I don't even think that's a downside. But
the downsides that are I think the downsides in the system are currently being addressed or have already been addressed, and I'm at least like on board with either the proposed solutions or the solutions already mentioned. So
well, I don't want to get too far ahead, but I just
yeah,
want to
yeah,
quickly say that well, now five legend fives can't be a team.
right.
Well, personally, I don't think that's really a contender made team. And you know what? Maybe those legend fives could spread out, maybe join intermediate or be a crappy team in intermediate. That's a huge contention. And I'll be real. We'll be focusing mostly on using contender league ranks just because it's easier to stick with one. But this is a problem that has been in intermediate league a lot. Uh, Not so much in divine. It's mostly intermediate and
Yeah.
contender, and that's where over half the teams are. I think intermediate has 16, contender has 14.
Divine
That's
had 14 at the start of the season as well. Divine's
bigger.
gotten pretty large. Yeah, it's about the same size now.
Mhm. I just remember when Intermediate was at 20 teams, and I think
Mhm.
Divine was at 8, and then Contender had
There was
16.
a season where intermediate was at, like, 28.
24. I think it was 24.
24 was the max? Okay.
And then it dropped to 22. So 6 teams got kicked out of playoffs. That like 22 teams, and that was wild. I think it was good.
That was recent. There
Yeah.
was a time, I think, way back in the day where it was closer to 30 or past 30, or before the pack era,
Mm,
if you will.
okay. See, I don't go that far. I think I started season 18, season 19.
Season 14 is, I think, the last season before the pack era.
Yeah, I think I was
But
season 18 is when I started 82. But that's like 4 years.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh gosh, I don't think about how far back 14 was.
Hmm. Just add another year, like 5 years. Like
Yeah. Okay, let's get into the basics of the proposed change. Or I mean, it's your, you know, you got our stuff written down. Where are we starting here,
Well,
Fireman?
I barely got anything written down. I had 30 minutes, man. I was working after I started talking to you guys in the morning. But Mad Max's post, he's proposing averages. He gives an example. He says Legend 3 average for Contender. That could change with an Ancient 3 ceiling. So you could join up as an Ancient 3, but because of the MMR average, you can't have like 4 Ancient 3s on a team. He even mentions, well, this post doesn't really address that, but we there's been talks of a floor, but we'll get to that as well. But the goal is teams to be kind of similar to MMR. One thing that has happened in 82L, and it's happened actually in both Contender and Intermediate this season. Intermediate has a team with 3 Divines, I believe, on it.
Oh
The
yeah.
Grin's Intermediate team, and I'm good friends with them. And you know what? They did not break any rules. They showed up, and because of that, 3 or 4 of them were Ancient 5, one was Ancient
Uh-huh.
4, and they didn't break any rules, and they're allowed to climb up to Divine.
The
And that kind of defeats
I
competitive integrity, in my opinion.
so I love those guys, and I would care. I don't care about the fact that they're playing in intermediate. I play as someone who played in intermediate. I had no problem with them playing. The one thing that I still find funny, and it's pretty funny as in a suspicious way, is there was I think it was Mozart was talking to like either Good Guy or Jera when like they had 2 Divine players, and Mozart was like, "Oh, you guys signing up for the Divine League?" And I think it was Jared. Jared was like, "No, no, we're signing up for intermediate." And he's like, "Well, you have 2 Divine players," and he said, "Oh, but don't worry, we'll both be ancient by the time sign up starts." So I
I'm
still love those guys.
mhm,
I think they're totally fine to play in intermediate. Like it's still good competitive Dota with a lot of teams.
mhm.
But there's definitely some sus sandbag potential going on with that stack.
Yeah, perhaps.
But I enjoy. I thought we made our team good enough to beat to at least give them a best of 3 run for their money. Maybe not beat them, but I thought our stack had a chance.
I'm not gonna comment on hearsay and stuff, but one thing that is funnier is the Divine team for Grin with Bry Guy on it was lower ranked than their intermediate team.
Oh yeah, no, they're yeah. I mean, I won't get into that too much. I think reading some of Bry Guy's comments too is they knew that they weren't going to be good in Divine. I don't think they really thought they were going to do well in Divine. I think they got their last season in intermediate. They did fairly well, and they thought it would be the same. I think if they had looked at the teams, they would have realized they wouldn't have finished top 4, like guaranteed. I think it would have been a tough top 4 finish if they got it,
Hmm.
and I think they would have had a good time in intermediate. But that's just my take on that. I think they wanted the challenge to begin with, so
Yeah, everybody's a little different. I know Bry Guy, he's a team that I just want to be in a league that's really good. Some people, and someone touched on this, why we have such a huge smurfing problem in Dota is if everybody wanted a challenge, why do we have all these smurfs? It's because people like to win easy. And
yeah.
we have another team, and believe it or not, a player on this team, his name is Talus in Contender. I believe their team was 3 Legend 5s, or 4 Legend 5s. It was like 3 Legend 5s, 1 Legend 4, and a Legend 1 or 2. I believe Talus was. He dropped from like Ancient 4 to Legend 1 or 2. And Talus even admits to this is that if you want a good team in, let's say, any division, intermediate contender, you find the highest people you can get. So you stack as many Legend 5s as you can, as many Legend 4s as you can to kind of hit that bracket. Gambit, you remember Soy Boys, correct?
Soy
I mean, not
boys.
Soy Boys, Rice Babies. You know who Rice
Oh yeah,
Babies
yeah,
are.
yeah. You said soy boys, and I was like, was that Soul Invictus? Wasn't that their nickname?
Yes, I call them Soy Boys.
Oh yeah, yeah. Rice.
Rice Babies. They were a team
The
of,
JD stack, right?
yes, they were a team of 4 Legend 5s and a Legend
Wasn't
4.
Drayden on that stack too?
I only remember JD,
Oh,
and
okay,
the fact that he somehow lost 9 out of 10 recalibration games and went Ancient 3 to Legend 4 or something like that. But
that was
I'm not
quite
even talking
interesting.
about that controversy. That it is what it is.
Right,
Uh,
but I mean, they're doing the same thing though. They're stacking Legend
yes,
5 players. No
and
matter what, like in any scenario where you give some
mhm.
sort of cap, teams are going to get as close to that cap as possible.
and
Because it gives them the best chances of winning. It's just simple math. NA
yeah,
math could even do it.
yeah, and I just want to touch quickly on this stack. Is right as soon as the first tweak happened, 3 of them were Ancient 1. And a lot of contender people were upset. And I was too. How can you have a team and contender already being above Legend 5 as an average? They
Yeah.
were above Legend 5 already after week 1. So they went to intermediate. You know what happened? They had the Ancient 1 went to Ancient 2 right away, and they lost an intermediate, and like, well, we don't like this league
Well, they
because it's too
forfeit.
tough.
They chose not to play. They didn't even play a game in intermediate.
Oh, I thought they played.
No,
Didn't they play
that
one
was part
week?
of the big controversy is that they literally chose not to play because they wanted to play in contender, and then they have this 2-0 on their record,
Mm.
and then they go crying to Mad Max about how it's not fair that they're playing in intermediate, and then they get put down again.
Well, I heard stories about that. I was there. Maybe I think it did
Which,
end up
to be
as
fair,
forfeit.
maybe they didn't deserve to just get immediately pushed to intermediate. I
The
don't know
thing
what the correct call is, but I think definitely the correct call is not to put them back where people were already complaining. That's just my take.
the thing is, when they
Yeah.
went to intermediate, they had an Ancient 2, 3 Ancient 1s, and 1 Legend 4, 1 Legend 5.
Mhm.
They are not a contender team. Now, this is bringing actually building up, by the way, to something Gambit. And they did go back to contender. They kicked their Ancient 2 and got a Legend 5, but they
Yeah.
were still above the average. And you know what? I'm very happy contender community stepped up and said, no admins. This is a bad decision. Smarten up. And the admins did. I could have, by the way, I'm just Gambit. As you know, I think the admins make a lot of bad decisions, but I'm not here about that. They do. They should honestly consult me sometimes. I swear to God,
Listen, it's
save a
not
million
easy being an
problems.
admin. They're you can't make every side happy. Like no matter what you do, 50% of the
Mhm.
people are going to be mad that you made whatever decision you made. You just have to accept that and move on. Now you do still need to make better decisions.
Listen, some decisions I might be upset with, but that was a ridiculous decision. Wasn't even affecting me. I just could not understand
I think I
how that
literally said if
happened.
they swapped out JD, I wouldn't mind playing that stack. My biggest problem was that I've played against JD before and I knew how good he was.
Yeah.
And I've never evaluated I've never evaluated him below like a divine 3 level. Like I've always thought like, and plus we talked to him after like drafting stuff, and that man puts a lot of effort into drafts, and I'm like, that's that's
It,
like going to a rec league and you have like,
yeah.
someone who's a former pro playing whatever sport
Mhm.
you're in the rec league. It's
Well,
like that's not very fun.
like I said, I have it's even on top of the fact that he lost like 9 out of 10 ranked games and he played horribly. Like who
Yeah,
goes 2-16 as fan? Like it looked really bad for JD. I'm not saying he did
yeah.
that, but I'm happy. But we're not here to talk about that. Like 9 months later, we're here about this. But segue into why this average MMR is being discussed because we have a lot of Legend 5 players that if they become Ancient 1 or Ancient 2, now 82 did slightly change that, allowing some Ancients in if your team was a Legend 3 average. But you had all these Legend 5s, Legend 4s, rather staying at 5 and 4 so they can continue playing in 82L with their friends because if they go to intermediate, they're facing all these Ancient 5s. There was
Mhm.
no nice progression where, oh, we can still play against kind of players that are our level. It was like Legend 5 stacks, and if you go to intermediate, your stack isn't going to be good anymore. People don't want you playing core a lot of the time.
Mhm.
Uh, so you have like, we go back to Jared's stack of Ancient 5. That's going to be a tough stack to beat. And I remember many years ago, and they did slightly change intermediate and divine division that one season because party MMR was the same in Ancient 7. There was half the stacks were a bunch of Ancient 7s, which were actually divines, not playing solo MMR, and they were destroying any other team that was like Ancient 3s and Ancient 4s. We can't have that in this league. We can't have where if you just grab 5 Legend 5s, they can just dominate the league. That I just think that is completely wrong. And that is why we're now finally at average MMR, which allows these Legend 5s to go to the next league and not feel out of place.
So the one thing I like too
Hmm.
about average MMRs is it's not even like it's not even telling anyone that's above Legend 3 like, "Hey, get out. This isn't like your league anymore." It's just saying, "Hey, like find some people that keep your average at Legend 3." Like it's even
Hmm.
like the ancients, the people that kind of dip their toe into ancient in this scenario, it's like you hit ancient 1 or 2, it's like, "Listen, if the rest of your team isn't caught up with you, that's fine. If your average is still in the ballpark, like I think your team can totally still be a contender team." Like it's not out of the question for you to kind of go off do your own thing. Like I think Harb is setting a good example by saying, "Hey, I'm playing intermediate next season, looking for a team." He's hitting Ancient 5. He's almost divine now. He might have to play on a divine team. We have no idea. Um, but it's not like he's immediately kicked. Like he's kicked out of contender now, obviously at this point. But let's just say,
Hmm.
like theoretically, he had only grinded up to Ancient 2. It's like, okay, maybe he's not exactly ready to play against potentially, a couple of ancient. Because here's the thing as well, he at most he wouldn't play against a stack of Ancient 5s. It would be a stack of Ancient 3s. So it
Yes.
wouldn't even be that far off. It would still be averaged out to Ancient 3, all like, roughly with some weights, of course, in there, which we can discuss in a minute. But it's not as bad as people may think it out to be. Like the whole extremities situation that like I hate to call him out like this, but the extremity situation that like Darth Heisenberg would be like, okay, this Legend 4 average team, it no longer fits into contender, right? Like all a team of all Legend 4s. Now they have to either split up and form new teams with Legend, like they're Legend 4. They're still absolutely allowed to play in this league, just not together with that stack. Or they're forced to play up a division with their current team and play on average a team of Ancient 3s. I honestly don't think a team of Legend 4 or 5s would do that bad against a team of all Ancient 2s or 3s. Yeah, they're at an MMR disadvantage, but it's not terrible. It's not great. I'm not going to act like like I'm expecting them to win every time. But if I'm playing 2 badges down from someone and my whole team is 2 badges down, I'm not like, this is unwinnable, guys. We can't beat these guys. And then his situation of like, oh well, you can play like you can have a divine 3 player on that team. Um, again, just going back to the Legend 4, like out of contender. So we're in intermediate now, but like you could have like one divine 3. That's cool. The rest of their team is going to be around your MMR. You just have one divine 3 to worry about. Like, yeah, that's not great. They have a divine 3, but it's like that's one divine player, and your entire team is better than like roughly the rest of their team.
Yeah, I would think that one Divine 3 with a bunch of like legends and low ancients would be easier to face than a team of 5 Ancient 5s.
Right.
Like,
No, absolutely.
let's say and I think a team of 5 Legend 4s, here's an example. Like right now, let's say you're a team of 4 Legend 4s and one Ancient 1. You currently can't play in contender. That team has a way better chance with these new rule sets to be
Oh yeah.
competitive and intermediate now and could stay together. Yes, will they be a weaker team? Yes, but
A
they,
perfect example, Pot of Greed.
yeah,
They're like all Legend 4 or 5 or Ancient 1 or 2, and they just had to play against all these Ancient 5 stacked teams, or in the case of Grin Fallen, 3 Divine players and 2 Ancient 5 players.
yeah,
And like under these new rules, they'll have a much better time. Not to mention, I have some insider information. They just replaced their Pause 5 with a Divine 1 player. Um, like they had done that before before this change had happened. Like they were already hoping that he could probably play with them next season because they like playing with this guy. But
Yeah.
already, like just as a team, they feel a lot more comfortable and look a lot more comfortable playing against roughly ancient 1 or 2 teams averages, than teams that are ancient 5. Like it's a lot more plausible for a lot of these intermediary teams.
Yes, like honestly, I think this change makes it so these, let's say even Pod Agreed, let's say they didn't change their pause 5. Pod
Right. Yeah.
Agreed now with these new changes would be more competitive because of the
Hmm.
MMR averages. So
Right.
you bring up that one player, Darth Eisenberg, bringing up that example. Uh, it's like, no, actually, a lot of these teams will do actually better. Like Pod Agreed got forced into intermediate, which they should. Really good team. I'm happy they went to intermediate, and it shows as a team you can all get better together. But
Hmm.
they get stomped because you got a team that averages Divine 1 or Divine 2, and at the top, and it's like, well, what are they supposed to do? There's no kind of in between. There's no rules stopping these teams from stacking. It goes back to the example I said that you have these legend 5s or ancient 5s not wanting to take the next step because they'll get their ass handed to them. With this new
Right.
average MMR approach, that'll
Teams are
happen
overall
less.
easier. They're
Yeah.
lower averages now.
Yes. Now I do understand there is still going to be teams that are weak. Okay, that's never going to change. You're going to have top teams. You're going to
And
have
you're gonna
bottom
have Seth's
teams.
team. Oh, sorry.
Oh, Seth's team that disbands after a couple of weeks. I feel bad.
I forgot you're on that team too.
If Seth watches this video, I would play with Seth again. I'm just saying, Seth and I think we have the same goals where we just want to show up and we just want to play.
It's okay. I took your least favorite player away from you, so
I
it's a
saw
good
that.
chance you're not
I
playing with
saw
him
that.
again.
Saw that. We can have a. I'm happy you have him. Is that in contender?
Yeah, we'll be playing in contender next season.
Maybe if I play in contender, I'll get to face you guys. I'll
Yeah.
really suck, by the way. Anybody, by the way, if you watch my video and you need a core player that's Ancient 1 that hasn't played in a month and doesn't really want to play a lot of Dota, hit me up. I'm
and just Canadian.
and I'll drink beer while
Hey,
we
that's
play.
a selling point. That's a selling point.
I drink beer while we play too.
Gosh, it's like a better Gambit right now.
I'm just saying. No, Gambit. Listen. If anything, with this new average MMR, I'm hurting my team. I'm above the average.
Oh, that's true.
And
I
don't play. But if you don't care about winning, you know what? Slide me in there.
A bit of self-advertisement.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I won't lie. I thought I did really well as off lane after playing for only 2 weeks, so I'm pretty happy with that. Thank you. But that's beside the point. This average would be good. And now, as an H1 player, I kind of have 2 options. I could do contender or I can do intermediate. Like, I do feel like I have an opportunity to play an intermediate and not hinder my team as much.
I feel like this actually is very, very good for free agents. People that don't the people that can't always find a consistent home, for lack of better words. There's going to be players that they play, you don't mesh, it's whatever, right? But you don't want to be that player that's, again, not at the cap, right? Not Legend 5. And you don't want to feel like, because you're not a Legend 5 player looking for a team in contender, you're not getting picked up, right? Now it's like, if you're in the ballpark of anything, some player might pick you up and be like, well, now we have more room in other positions, right? Like, so there's a bit of like, again, what people call min-maxing. I don't think it's that bad because of the fact that, like, again, Ancient is weighted. I think it's actually very healthy for the league because more players and free agents will get looked at, because you might have a team like, let's say TBD, for example, just because I ran the calculations, it's like if they don't have Harb next season, they would need a Legend 1 or below replacement for Harb. So now all of a sudden it's like, I don't want a Legend 5 carry because I can't have that. I actually want a Legend 1 carry or below if I can find them, or if I can move some things around, again, to make a team work. It's kind of, it to some people, they probably consider it obnoxious and a nuisance, but it's kind of like this fun little puzzle that you get to do as a captain. Now it's like, okay, do I want to have this ancient? Do I want to have Licky the Cow as my offlaner, Ancient 1, or do I want to find this Ancient 1 pause 4 that can also do crazy things? Like there's some again, there's some theory crafting you get to do. And then elsewhere, you find this guy, maybe like Prophecy, who's recent Kobolds member, who's like, okay, he's Legend 2, he's willing to play 3 roles. That looks pretty good. He's under the average, so he brings the overall -1. So it's like, that's pretty nice. I get more room in my. It's kind of like cap space.
Yeah, it is kind of like that. It is a
It's
good.
kind of like cap space.
It is. I like cap leagues like the NHL where it's a hard cap, or even NBA soft cap. It is kind of uh, nice to be able to do that. Okay, I really want a good shooting guard, so you go out and get your good
So you
shooting
go,
guard.
you pay your shooting guard X amount of money.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, I think in hockey, you want to pay your number one defenseman 8 million. You want a number one centerman, you give him 8 million, and you're like, well, my lineup, because of these two positions are really high, I got to fill it out with lesser players.
Okay,
So
real
basketball is
quick.
just 5. Okay.
I'm gonna put your attention to feedback in 82L Dota 2. Max actually just did an entire Google Docs of every team in each bracket
Oh man,
average.
I was gonna show some screenshot you show me. I'm gonna show it before that. I did put it on here. There it is. Gambit's doing contender league. Just saying he did do the work. Another person did say 12 out of 14, and we can see the one team I mentioned at the very start of season last year. So the Soy Boys, you know what? They stacked their team, and Talus is aware he stacked his team, and he's actually fighting for this average stuff because he knows
So
if you
okay,
want a good team, you got to stack it generally.
one thing to say as well, because Talus and I are pretty good friends still. Surprisingly, I don't know why it'd be surprising. I just think it'd be fun to say. But Talus told me, he's like, originally it was just going to be me, Ghost Satan, and a couple of my friends that were like low legend, and then again he replaced them with higher skill players because he knew he wasn't going to win. So again, I don't think that's a scummy thing to do. I think that's totally reasonable to try to get the best players to give yourself a chance to win. Because at the end of the day, it's a competitive league. You want to have, again, players close to the cap give you a better chance to win.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like you just said, Talus is fighting for the averages because he thinks it's a very good idea. He thinks, again, like it's going to help overall all of 82L. And I do think, again, there's going to be some fine tweaking in the Divine League. But overall, especially for contender and intermediate, I think this is going to be a pretty easy thing to do. Archon will have some small tweaking, I think, but nothing too serious. But one thing this doesn't show that Max put up is, of course, the plus minus quote unquote result. This is raw data. This is not weighted value. So if there's anyone above say the league average badge, so not like Legend 3 but like Legend in general, if anyone's above Legend and they're in Ancient or in Intermediate who is Divine instead of Ancient, they're not weighted. This is unweighted.
So let me just show. I'll just go to display capture. If there we go. So this looks like Archon League. And let's just see if any teams can't meet it. Because someone brought up, Archon League, now we can't have full Archon teams, but let's take a quick peek. First team, we got a high guy, Archon 4. I'm a little confused by this, but I guess 19. However he weighted them. But Archon 2, so they meet Archon, Archon 3, Archon 3, Archon 1, Crusader 5.
As of current, every team, and again, this is unweighted, but I don't think anyone's Legend in the Archon League. Okay, there's one Legend player. So maybe Ankeny wouldn't be eligible next season, but that looks like it'd be the only team right now.
Wait, where?
The second team has a single Legend player, looks like. Are we on Archon or are we on Contender?
Archon. Oh yeah, Legend 3 player. So he'd be weighted a lot.
He's Legend 1, I thought.
That says Legend 3. I don't know if it's changed since,
Are we on?
Are we not Wards and Base? I'm on.
I'm not on Wards and Base.
Oh, there's a Legend 1 here. Okay, so I wasn't on the
There's
second
a Legend
team.
3 as well.
Apparently, I don't know how to scroll properly.
No, it's okay. I found the other one as well. We're all good.
But yeah, so this team potentially.
And the other thing to consider, it doesn't count the floor. Like I said, it's unweighted, and it doesn't count the floor as of right now.
Yeah, so this is slightly different. This 100%. The contender markings that you did counted the floor and did an actual
Right.
point system. This is more of hey in general. But if you count no, and honestly with Archon
But
League,
honestly, this is again for Archon League. Archon 3 seems like a very fair average to have.
yeah, two teams right there, Archon 1, Crusader 5, and
The
none of these
highest
teams went
average you
out.
have between any team is Archon 3, just unweighted.
Yeah. Like this Archon League, a lot of the players stay as a team, like the Middens, and
Mhm.
look, like they're Archon too.
Minces, lemon snow
Yeah.
cones, instigators,
Mary Todd Lincoln's
MTL,
FY.
yep.
Yeah, look, see, they're Crusader 5, but they
Um,
do pretty well as a
Harpies.
team.
Harpies is, I mean, at this point, it's two fifths, but it was three fifths at the start of the season. Their original roster.
Yeah, look at that. Real Chad's team, Crusader 4. But this is good. Like, this shows you right now, like, obviously no waiting. Maybe one team would have to bump up to, or an exception. You know
Well,
what? For
yeah,
Archon League, I'd be okay with an exception. If that team wanted to stay together with that one Legend
I
3,
think I
and if
think for a
other.
couple teams, there
Mhm.
definitely could be some exceptions made in each bracket, even.
Actually,
Um,
the Legend 3. See, he's playing with three
that would be the one
Crusaders.
thing. That would be the one thing I'd maybe be like, well,
Yeah.
maybe that player just needs to move up,
But
because that's also a this is a first season team.
mhm. Oh, okay.
So
See if they
I mean, Ward's base, but it's kind of
mhm.
their lower team.
Like see how it's Archon 2? Potentially maybe with the weights, he'd be
It would
okay.
be Archon 3 or 4.
Yeah, and that'd be fine. And if they stay together, I think you know what? You can grandfather
Actually,
teams that
this team
stay.
for sure would be okay still.
Yeah, yeah. No, Archon looks
I can do
good.
this in my head.
We can skip contender. Okay, smarty pants. No, I'm just kidding. We'll go to intermediate because you did do contender, but yeah, to be decided and Soy Invictus are the two. Soul Invictus. I'll say their name properly once since the Soy Boys. Dude, they're the Soy Boys to me. But they
And again, like I mean, on TBD, it was Biggie and
mhm,
Phantom. I think are the only two returning members of TBD.
mhm,
Because their other three players all hit Ancient. Because I played against that team last season.
mhm.
MBD Master Builder actually hit Divine 3 and was playing intermediate this season. Hit Divine 3.
Okay.
Um, but at the time that we were playing them, I think they had two Ancient 4s and two Ancient 4s and two Ancient 2s actually, and then Biggie.
So you wanted me to show the TBD and intermediate, not contender. I was showing the
Oh
TBD and contender quickly.
no! I was talking about contender. I was talking about contender.
Someone hit Divine 3?
Not during the season.
Oh, before.
He hit Ancient 4 at the end of the season in contender,
Mhm.
moved to intermediate the next season, and this season hit Divine 3 on that team.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just saying, like, the TBD and contender, like, they had to replace three players that were going to be over the cap. Phantom ranked back down to Legend 5, I believe. And they picked up Harb, they picked up Snowstorm, they picked up Fred, right? Again, when they picked up players, Harb and Fred were like both Legend 5. They picked up, again, two players at the cap. Because again, they're trying to win.
So intermediate seems like it changed even more because, like, obviously we know this team can't be, and it
Grin
couldn't
Fallen's
anyways
already
in
an
the other
intermediate
rule.
team. Or an already a divine team.
Great, yeah, they're a divine team already.
Wait, okay, to be fair as well, Ghost Pepper was like Ancient 4 and then did his recalibrations and ended up at Legend 5 somehow. I don't think he threw them. I'm just like, that was. Ghost Pepper's a good player. He is not a Legend
Yeah,
5 player. He's good.
this team is also above, and with the weightings would be above. But you're starting to see
Uh,
this. Look at intermediate. Like, if you're a Legend 5 or an Ancient 1 player like myself, do I want to be facing these teams? Are you like,
a lot of greed. You're graduating from contender because you have two
yeah.
Ancient 1 players, right? You
Mhm.
don't want to be playing these teams that are Divine 1, Ancient 4 average. It's not fun.
No, these two teams, I don't want to face either of them, and they would be moved up, uh, and their averages would be higher with the weighted system, which we'll
Right.
get to soon. This is a nice team. This is a nice team to face. Ancient 3, they have 3 Legend 5s, Legend 4. They got sent up, like they signed up for this league. This is a way
Which team are
better.
you on?
I'm on the Juggernauts.
Oh, okay, yeah. Excalibur Hexy stack.
Yeah, like that's a nice. This is a stack that could compete in an Ancient Three average,
Mhm.
but against these two teams, they can't. This team would be allowed. They'd be one of the better teams. Does this game
Yep.
just by
Fall damage.
averages
Fall
hit?
damage is in top 3 right now. They're doing really well,
Yeah.
right? And again, it's a team. It's a Red Alert's playing carry with the stack. He's Legend 3. The rest of the team low to mid high ancient, like 1, 2, and 2 fours. That's
Uh,
not a bad stack.
I'll be real with you. In Dota, obviously every team's slightly different, but like there's different strengths to every team. Like,
Oh yeah.
I'll go back to my intermediate championship. I won with Mango middle. Mango isn't the greatest middle, and he consistently lost his lane. But what he did was space crate, and he ran around like a goon with Rhino and Bricko as our pause four, and they were like the trifecta that did a lot of work. I
Hmm.
had one job. My job was, and this is kind of an example that I brought up. Is you know what I was losing lane consistently because I had a Crusader as my support as my pause five, and we weren't going to kick him from the team. And like I did my best to make sure it was effective. I remember he died 5 times in one of the playoff matches. We gave him Phoenix when he said he could play Phoenix. Never saw him play Phoenix, and let me tell you, he does. He has no idea what he's doing. But you know what? We won with him, and we did the best. And but like, we consistently lost lane. And listen, I know you said my least at the start, my least favorite player. I don't hate Dill, just that he had Seth, and no offense to Seth, he's a weaker support than you because I believe you played pause five, or who
On
was
what?
when you won with Dill on
No,
WSS,
I
who was
played
the
mid.
support? Yeah, you were mid.
Darth Heisenberg.
Yeah, Darth Heisenberg's a good support player. So when you have in my opinion, Darth's a better player than Dill, your lane is going to be way easier. You know, like you have to kind of adapt. So like when you have this weak support, and
Mhm.
especially in today's Dota, supports matter. So like my
Oh
Crusader
yeah.
dying 5 times in lane really fucked me over a lot. And you know what? People saying, yeah, you're gonna stack your sideline with the two ancient three players, and you're gonna go grab two Archon threes. You know what? Two legends can beat the crap out of
Are you
the
looking
two.
at Pot of Wrath right now? Is that what you're talking about this?
Well, no,
Well, they're the
no.
next team. Do you want to talk about them a little bit? Because that would actually be a really good point to mention.
Pot of Wrath right now, without
Legend 3
actually
average,
weighing,
unweighted.
unweighted, they would not meet the requirements because, Ancient 3 potentially if we go by
And
weight. But,
this is why personally I want the weights.
yeah,
Just again, before we talk about it, is you could have multiple ancient threes on a team, an Archon 4, a Legend 1, and Archon 2. To me, that's a good stack to play against a team of legends. That's a Legend 3 average as well. Like this is already like, it'd be on the top side, but like you'd have you for sure are gonna have an ancient 3 mid laner, and then you have at least one ancient core laner in the side. And it doesn't matter if you pair him with the Archon 2.
hmm
It's like he's gonna micromanage him a little bit. At worst, he's gonna play like an Archon 5, you know, and then all of a sudden your average is even further up. But again, that's why I'm a bigger advocate for the weights.
not,
Uh,
I will say, not everybody's able to tell their player
yeah,
what to do
correct.
and efficiently make that Crusader or Archon better. I do feel like I made Venom, like a full badge better playing with him because I never died in lane. I told him just throw your body in front of me and we'll be fine. If I don't die as a carry, we're good. And
Hmm.
that's he consistently did that. I don't think he did that in pubs.
Yeah, but again, that's just
Yeah,
my advocation for weights.
I do agree with some
Just before we
weights.
get too far into it, you know.
I do agree with waiting, but yes, this is a Legend 3 average team with no weights. Technically, could play in contender.
But okay, but as
They
well,
won't though with the
let
floor
let's
even.
just say let's just say in theory, because again, this will be
Mhm.
weighted heavily. This will be like a lower stack. Let's put them against fall damage, right? You have two ancient threes, Archon 4, Legend 1, Archon 2, against a team of basically low ancients, a Legend 3, and two ancient fours. Like, do I favor Pot of Wrath? No, not in any way, but do I think they have bad chances? No. Like I think they've at least got a solid fighting chance against the stack.
Yeah, you swap that
It
Archon.
might be an uphill battle, but they've
Yeah,
got a chance.
let's just say you swap that Archon 2 for like a Legend 2 or Legend 3. Like the averages are
Oh
way
yeah.
closer.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, this would be
And I
a
mean, you
competitive.
swap either Archon with like
Hmm.
two Legend 3s, and it's not a bad team, honestly, in my
Hmm.
opinion, in Pot of Wrath. Like just by going a full badge up. And that's totally plausible in the rules. Like it doesn't really hurt your team. Um, but yeah, like another example, just going down the list even further, is Tennessee Tech Esports. A team that's always kind of been that like 6-6 staple in the intermediate bracket.
Hmm.
Honestly, all of a sudden, I think they're a solid intermediate team just because of averages. Because their average is Legend 3, and that's with a Crusader 2 and a couple Ancients, so they wouldn't be eligible for Contender with the weights. But again, having basically everyone's like Legend 5 or Ancient 1, and they have
Hmm.
one Crusader 2, that's not like that's other aside from the Crusader 2, if you took that out and replaced it with any Legend 5 or Ancient 1, this is a Legend 5 Ancient 1 average team.
Yep.
And that's solid.
Yeah, this team is pretty solid, and we got to remember this Crusader 2 would bump up the floor,
This
and
Crusader 2 is also not bad. I've played against them a few times now.
yeah, like Tennessee Tech has been playing a lot with themselves. Like this team potentially could compete and do better in intermediate now with these new
Mhm.
rules. You know, we're helping. Like some people are saying, "Oh, we're screwing over Legend Fives." No, this team has two Legend Fives on it. Uh, this team would benefit a lot.
These not all these MMRs are accurate, by the way.
No, no, no. Oh, not these. But I assume these medals are pretty close. Because like
Um
997 for an ancient one. Like,
I just know that MB97's Divine 3 now, just looking at TBD stack.
oh,
And Hollow might also be Divine 3. And Thug honestly might be Divine 1. I can't remember if they had 3 Divines or 2.
well, the fact is, like, you have teams
But I
that
think
were
I think
near
this
the
might have been on
max.
sign up. This might
Oh,
have been
okay.
closer to sign up.
Okay, well, even if it's the sign up list, this is an example showing a lot of teams aren't getting screwed, and a lot of the teams that were maxing as much as possible, which I did one season, and contender, we did really well in the regular season. We lost in the playoffs. That's another story we won't get into. But I did do the maxing one season,
Yeah, no,
and we
I've
did
I've done
well.
it several seasons.
Well, it makes sense. Well, I know you did. You know, I've seen WSS
Well,
Kobolds. You
aside
know,
from
the
me
one
most of
season.
the time.
I've
I've
seen
done
the
it in
maxing.
intermediate before. I mean, I have to at that point. I'm a legend playing in intermediates.
Yes, yeah, and you should like if you don't max, you're not competitive. This is
E-
kind of removing
Even
that.
with Satyrs this point, the like min maxing, I had a divine 1. I was trying to get him in. My argument was, well, we're at an ancient 3 or below average. We should be allowed to play with my divine 1 friend.
Yeah,
Um, and that's part of like again just the process I went through of like trying to min max with my stack that I was gifted. It was like, okay, how high, like, what's the highest MMR player I can get that's on my friends list that I like playing with? And it was 70. Like, I want to play with 70. So I was like, if I can find a way to make that work, that's great. I had to have 2 legend players to make it work, but that's okay.
I have no idea what these guys' ranks are. You're the one that plays in intermediate, so I know more. And I did zero content for intermediate, but this is a team average of Ancient Five entering the league.
Which team are you on right now?
Mochi,
Mochi?
yeah,
Mochi was definitely stacking.
but
And they had a lot of sus accounts too, but they didn't perform in playoffs that well, so I'm sure it wasn't that much of a problem.
yeah, but they stacked, and that's fine.
They
Listen,
did
I'm
stack,
not
100%
anti.
stack.
Let's be clear, guys. I'm not saying all these teams stacking. They're bad people, and we should shun them. I am not even saying that at all. What I am saying is,
It's the logical response to form a winning team, and so
yes,
people are going to do it.
yes.
Whether you think it's morally correct or not doesn't matter. People are going to do it because people want to win. That's just competitive human nature.
Yep, I agree. That's the most important thing to mention. We don't hate these guys. They're doing what they got to do to win. You know, I wanted to play an intermediate with Carl. Carl and I talked. I didn't play an intermediate because, I didn't want to face five
Mhm.
ancient fives.
Right. No, it's
You know,
it's not fun. Like again, scrolling down to like human and Mochi
mhm.
since they're right next to each other. Right. It's not fun being the human Carlson stack where you have one divine 1 player, one ancient 2 player, you have a legend 2 average, and you're playing this Mochi stack of all ancient 5s.
Yep.
It's not fun to play that stack.
But this stack is a
They
fun
also have a
stack,
herald
and
too,
that herald
but
too.
it is a,
Let's
it is a
remove
friend
them.
stack. Yeah,
Their stack is 3 legends, 1 ancient, and a divine. This is
but they
would
actually have 6
remove.
players.
Well, yeah. If you remove this herald, their team's probably like ancient 2 average. This team would be
Yeah,
very competitive if you remove the herald 2 from this average potentially.
Yeah,
and it's probably friends playing, and that's kind of what 82L is. I know
and that's
people.
again at an ancient two average, they have a much
Mhm,
easier chance again playing say satyrs as far as MMR goes
yeah,
than they would mochi just because the MMR disparity. Because
look,
when you say ancient
yeah,
five to ancient two average, you got to understand that's per player.
yeah.
So per player, that's like 600 MMR. That's like a 3,000 MMR disparity between the teams. It's not
Yeah,
all in one spot. It's balanced out, but it's still like each lane you're talking like side lanes 1200 MMR behind each side lane. Mid lane you're 600 MMR behind just on average. Like
I won't lie. I was kicking ass in my off lanes in the series every time. I hadn't figured out how to translate that in 82L matches.
the
But in my
Zycor stack.
pubs, I was. Zycor stack would do really well. Look at this. They
Zycor
have
stack would be really
two
cool, really
legends,
fogging an average stack.
three low ancients. This is a great intermediate stack. Now, at,
This is okay, and to be fair as well, it's not like because really all we're doing is shifting. Because before it's like the what's a good way to explain it? It's not like we're really changing much. We're moving the average down because or the cap average down because basically before you could have a cap of like ancient five,
mhm,
like you could have ancient five average team. This mochi team, 100% a legitimate team. There's nothing wrong with it.
mhm.
Um, our only argument is that if we do averages, an ancient five average team would do much better against a divine two average or divine three average team than an ancient one average team would do against an ancient five average team.
Yeah, look at this team. Fellowship of the Ping potential. I think is their last word.
Yeah, thought
They
peeping.
have two ancients, two legends, one Archon. Great guys, by the
Well, and
way.
Carl
Had
was
him.
added late in the season
Yes, Carl was added late in the
for
season.
for a reason so that they could
Compete.
basically have a better chance. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like,
And look at this. Like they're Legend 4 average, so they would still not be
mhm,
allowed in contender, but now they can play an intermediate and be a little more competitive. I always hated
right.
the fact you had these teams that were near the cap and it was like better for them to sandbag than to try
Hmm.
to move up. You have a team or two slowly move up and they just get destroyed. It
Here's
is
here,
demoralizing, honestly.
here's a heavily debated topic from intermediate content. We made fun of monkeys on bikes all season during intermediate content because we constantly said they're not an intermediate team. They have one player that was at Ancient 4 or 5,
Hmm.
Phoenix, right? And the rest of their team, this is a friend stack, right?
Yeah.
It is a Legend 2 average team. There's no reason that because they have one Ancient 4 player, this team needs to be playing an intermediate. I think this would be like an exception you could maybe give for a team to play in the legend bracket, right? Like in contender, I said several times, I was like, I don't think, and this again was also prior to the rules being a legend 3 average, but if the rules were still legend 5 cap, me and Grecky were both saying multiple times like we would have no problem playing monkeys on bikes. They would win most of their games, but they would not be like a top 4 team probably.
Yeah, it's really tough. I'd still probably turn them down just because of the Ancient Four, but
They didn't
really
win a single
tough.
game in intermediate.
I know. It sucks. I look at this team, and I'm like, this is not a contender team. This is not an intermediate team. There's no in between league. But with the new MMR averages, this team would be more competitive intermediate. And we can't have a guy be
It
Ancient
would be
Four
more competitive
starting.
in intermediate just because the averages are
Yeah,
closer to again ancient 3 instead of ancient
but
5.
we can't have. I don't think we can't have an
I think
Ancient Four starting
ancient
in.
3 was already a tough line for me to draw in contender. I think you could get away with it in some aspects, but I do think starting ancient 3 is going to be again I mentioned before like kind of a hurdle we have to climb as a community. Like, is that going to be okay with everyone that there is a player starting the league at ancient 3? Or
I
is that going to be too much? Because there is going to be natural progression even from those players
oh
playing in
yeah,
their rank games.
I think personally for me, I would be like Phoenix. If I'm an admin, I'd talk to their team and I'd be like, Phoenix, here's the deal. If you play support 5 or 4, and 4 can have a lot of impact on
Hmm.
games, by the way. 4 is actually a very important role. People saying, oh, just put your Archons at support, you're going to hurt other places, even in contender. I don't care. Like, games are getting better. Supports have been getting more important in Dota. So if you think supports are useless, you're completely wrong. Anyways, going back to I would say Phoenix if you can play 5 or 4, and your other 4 play core. I think I'd let him play in contender last season.
I would still be fine no matter what. But again, like
I'd
that's
say I
just
can't have an Ancient 4 playing mid. Like starting at
again.
Ancient 4, it's one thing if you were Harb. Let's just say Harb is a mid
Yeah, I
player
think
and
again
he
that's
goes
the
to
other
Ancient
issue is he's
4.
starting Ancient 4.
It's because he's starting Ancient 4. But if he agreed
Yeah.
to play support, I would let him play in contender. And I realize there's teams with 1 or 2 ancients in contender, but they started either at Ancient 1 or not even Ancient. And like Harb, we have to understand, last patch was horrible for Harb. None of his heroes were good. Harb is good at like 1 or 2 things in Dota, really good at him, by the way, and this is not flaming Harb. He sucked ass last patch. Everything was horrible about him. New patch comes out, and I'm gonna be real. Ice Frog was like, man, Harbinger's having a really tough time with MMR. I wonder if I could do this, this, and this, and make Harb a god. And guess what? Ice Frog did that, and uh, I won't lie. I think this patch might have benefited me if I was playing a little carry as well. Similar style. I'd have to play a couple months to get back to that, but I actually think I would climb a shit ton as well. Like this patch is Harb's patch, so like people upset. Like not many people are actually upset with Harb, but like I'm very happy with Harb, and I like that the league does not punish sand. Like doesn't punish you leveling up and getting better, and
Well, it does
that it
at some
doesn't
point.
encourage sandbagging. Well, it does. Well, Divine one, but I'm okay with Harb
Yeah.
being an Ancient 4 carry finishing out the season with this team.
I
Harb
think that's a
is
dumb
a
rule, by the way, too, just for the record.
well. I know that screwed you up, but listen up. Carl, 2 hours before, got disqualified as an
Oh
Ancient
yeah.
1 Legend 5 cap. Carl played 1 game. You know what? I wasn't even maxing that year. Carl was an Archon 4 when I found him. Uh, and I'm taking some props for him hitting Ancient 5 at one point because Carl got so much better in the small period with me. I take credit for how good Carl is. I'm just saying, I don't care. Carl can agree, he can disagree, but Carl did a lot of stupid shit with me, and I solved it a lot because I yelled at him. He needs people to yell at him. So if you're on Fellowship of the Ping, don't be scared. Yell at Carl. He does a lot of stupid shit, like being invoker and walking up hills when I tell him don't do it, and then he dies instantly and he doesn't have buyback. So yell at yell at him. We'll go to Divine League. I didn't want to spend too much on this. I wanted to go to the
Uh,
waiting and the floor.
Divine League is
Oh, he didn't.
maybe incomplete at this time.
Okay, but who cares about Divine? You know what?
Divine, I don't know what they're gonna do. I really hope Dops comes up with something. I think she's the only one that has any experience in the bracket to actually do anything. If Max or Geo come up with something for the Divine League, I would actually 100% bail unless Dops like backs it.
As
eh,
as long as most Divine players are happy, and honestly, with that
yeah,
league, since it's like you could be any MMR up to 500 Immortal, you know what? We could even say Divine teams. It doesn't even matter if you stack. I like
that might have to be one where it sticks at like Divine 5, not an average, just because of again the way it works. And there might have to be some small
yeah.
exceptions for people that are immortal, where it's like, well, if you have an immortal and you got 2 ancients or something, it's kind of okay. But that again, that's one where it definitely gets a little finicky on what
But
exactly you're allowed to do with averages.
contender and intermediate, you just have way more players, and the averages are kind of more
Well, and I think for contender and
serious.
intermediate, it makes sense because there's a badge directly above it
Yeah.
with a 1 through 5 rating of that badge. When you get to divine, of course, you have
Mhm.
immortal, and there's no 1 through 5 immortal.
No,
There's a ranking board, like the leaderboards, right?
you
So
know,
it just gets
yeah.
a little harder.
Divine, I think, isn't as much of an issue with the averages as Archon, contender, and intermediate are. And I don't think Archon leagues. But Archon leagues where oh, you're a bunch of Crusaders, some Archons, you can't compete in contender. I don't even think Archon League is going to be that much of an issue. I'm really happy Archon League became a league. Shout out to Fireman also suggesting it. Shout out to Seth for listening. So that was really good. But
At some point, if Archon League grows big enough, it would really be nice to split that into Archon Crusader as well. But that's going to be a tough. You got to get enough player base for that first, and that's going to be, I think, the tough part.
so I have a
But that's
notepad.
something that's been taught, like, because there are stacks of just like Crusaders and Guardians, basically, just trying to play some competitive Dota. But it's hard.
Yes, the issue even starting Archon League, and we started with only 4 teams. Some people don't actually
Oh,
remember
that's
that we
true.
only had 4 teams for that league. It is a challenge to get, because less Archons are looking for competitive teams
Was it
than
like double round
Legends
robin?
and Intermediate and everything. Well, it was, but you got to start
That's fine
somewhere.
then.
But
That's fine.
if we get enough Archon teams and there's enough teams that are Crusaders, yes, maybe we add a Crusader League. And honestly, they picked Archon for a combination of Archon and just the fact Archon's kind of iconic to Dota.
Mhm.
Before it was a rank, you had even a Dota team called Archon Gaming. I think it was.
Oh
I
my
think it
god.
was. I believe the owner was that guy that plays Hearthstone. He gets like 5,000 views or something.
I don't remember it.
Regardless, I'm
Really?
here with a new screenshot. Actually, let me just hide this. New display capture here. For whatever reason, I'm hitting the mouse. Waitings. We're on waitings. God damn it. We haven't talked about them. I posted a couple. These are only for contender, by the way. Potentially, they could be mimicked throughout Archon and Intermediate. Maybe those leagues slightly change. But for simplicity's sake, we picked a 0 point of Legend 3 that Mad Max mentioned. And we have a couple examples where we can weight points differently. Now, before I let Gambit interrupt, some people were talking about maybe Legend 4 as a 0 point. I think Legend 4 is horrible. I don't think you should be going up. Someone else suggested Legend 2 as a 0 point. I don't mind that too much, like if it was 2, but 3 feels good because you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars. So uh, I'm okay with Legend 2 0 point. I'm okay with Legend 3. I think Legend 3 0 point just looks more pretty. Gambit, do you have opinion on 0 points?
Yeah, I do actually. So to me, I agree with you. I think Legend 4 is it's too close to basically what the system already was, which was like a Legend 5 cap.
Hmm.
And now you got to again consider the fact that they're willing to allow in players above that Legend 5 marker now. With certain weights involved. And I'm assuming they can see them on the screen, right? So like they see the ancient
Hmm.
one as a it's weighted 50% heavier than just being in the legend bracket in general. Um, as far as Legend 2 goes, I wouldn't mind Legend 2 either. I do think that having them at Legend 3 or right smack dab in the middle of each badge really makes sense though for kind of like grouping these brackets in like
Hmm.
a logical sense because you can have an Archon 3 average league, a Legend 3 average league, an Ancient 3 average league, a Divine 3 average league. Just roughly. Hopefully, they're all roughly there. So it just makes sense because they're all smack dab in the middle. If you're a player that's Legend 5, it's not that you're excluded from the Legend 3. Like, it's not a Legend 3 and below league. It's like find some Legend 1 players if you want to play contender. If you want to play intermediate, like you get to play with some divine players and like learn from them and play in an ancient 3 average. Like there's some cool things that you get to do here. Just because I think it's smack dab in the middle. If you put it at 4 or 2, I think it kind of messes the system up a little bit. Really, it just creates new 0 points. It really doesn't do that much, but it makes it simplistic also for the weighting. So right now, again, if you're playing if
I
your badge is
actually,
the
can I
oh
interrupt quickly? Do you know what the
yeah, go for
Legend
it, go for it.
3 average is? And if you don't,
The
could you look it up for me? Even though I could,
The Legend 3 average, like the player base or the MMR?
MMR. Do you know what kind of the estimated medal is? Because
3,400 roughly. Very,
okay,
very roughly. I'm at 3,380 and I have no percentage. But
okay,
I just lost my percentage recently.
awesome. And if you're Legend 5, I think it's like 3,800. Do you know what the MMR
So
average
Legend 3 is
of?
3,388.
Do you know what the MMR average used to be in contender? I posted it
Oh
today.
my gosh. Oh, and because contender used to be 3,200 and below?
It was 3,000 MMR.
Was it 3,000
With
and below? Okay.
it was there was a
Well, that's
few
way before.
exceptions. There was a few exceptions to allowing players up to 3.2. And you know what intermediate was? It used to be 4.2k.
4,200 and below. I've played in
4,200 and
intermediate
below.
then.
And now right now we allow a Legend 5 cap which is about 3,800, where you can have 5 3,800s in a league that used to be 3,000s. Personally, I think there was a creep because we had and not just for contender, but for intermediate too. Because like players were like, "Well, I'm kind of getting a little bit better, but I really don't want to play the next. Like, can you bump it
Uh-huh.
up for us?" And you know what? The admins, and I'm not gonna lie, it's a tough decision too. Admins were like, "Well, we kind of gotta because we'd be screwing all these people over."
Was
You
that when
know,
badges came out, you're saying?
yeah, when badges came out, they had to switch to a badge
Yep.
average, and they're like, well,
Yep.
also badges when they first came out changed completely and like screwed everything over because they
They
weren't a
literally
set
reworked all
number.
the brackets,
Oh, they weren't
right?
even
Because
a fucking set number, dude. They changed over time. That's Carl
Mhm.
was Legend 4. He played one game and hit Ancient 1. And that's what screwed us
Oh,
over.
that was the other thing. You couldn't drop badges at the
Yeah,
time
you couldn't
initially
even
of
drop
badges.
badges.
So if you hit Ancient 1, it didn't matter if your MMR was 3,200 anymore. You're all of a sudden you're
Mhm.
rocking this Ancient 1 badge. You have to play no matter how you're playing in your pubs. Um, that is one of the good things I think they did do with badges is allowing you to drop after you drop below
Yeah,
by a full badge.
yeah, dropping is huge, and now they're just straight numbers. They're not, oh,
Yeah.
well, people are here, so now Ancient One MMR has changed. Oh my god, I hated that so much.
There's only it's one MMR. If you're playing ranked, that's your MMR in ranked. Doesn't
Well,
matter if you're party queuing, solo queuing, queuing, core support, as the differences in the past have emulated.
I
Is
actually hate that party MMR and solo are combined. I know a lot of people enjoy that. I fucking hate it.
I think there's
I
a lot to tell about people that play solo or play party. I think so. Before I actually thought there's a lot of players that I would take their party MMR badge over their solo just because
Yeah.
I knew that they would play better. Like they play nice, right? I know that I can trust that player to play in a 5 stack because if someone says something, I know that they're not going to just baby rage. If they're like a solo queue only player and that's where their higher badge was, I'm like, okay, mechanically they might be gifted, but also like he might rage quit in the middle of a series. Like there was sometimes where like you have to have a little bit of give and take just based on party and solo.
I'm just like, no, I wish they were separate again. I
I
hate
don't
it.
mind
I
that they're
know a
not
lot of
though.
people I know a lot of people love it. I fucking hate it. I hate it with the passion.
They give you less MMR for playing party right now too, so they're really trying to incentivize like you should play solo if you want to grind.
Yes, I just hate it. I hate it so much
But yeah,
for many reasons. But the weights. So Legend 3 is the 0-4 contender. We're just talking a contender here right now. The first example is Arkham players aren't weighted down. And by the way, there is a floor, and very important, guys. Uh, the example would be Archon 3 is the floor. So if you're Guardian 1, you don't bring the average down. So you can't have like 4 Ancients and a Herald. Guardian 3 becomes Archon 3 for rankings. And the floor is much needed because there's going to be
yeah.
people
You could
that
do a lot
abuse it.
heavier stacking if there
Yes.
wasn't a floor.
And you know what? I'm gonna be real. I don't think there's a difference. And I've played in that MMR on a account to prove that you can climb and that someone sucks. That I don't think there's a difference between Guardian and Herald or Guardian and Low Crusader. No offense, Jojo. I'm not out to get you. I just don't see much of a difference. There probably is one, but I've seen
As
that
someone who has
Crusader
a
one.
friend in the Herald
I'm
bracket,
sorry.
um,
Oh,
let me tell you,
Heralds
if
are
we party
terrible.
queue normal MMR, it is a night and day difference just playing with Crusaders
Yeah.
versus and like he won't always do badly, right? As a Herald, I think he's Herald
Yeah.
4 or 5. He won't always do badly, like but there are times where like I'll watch what he's doing. And I'm like, well, this guy is doing it better, but not by much.
hmm
Uh, but again, you're talking, if either one of them changed like a minute detail in the way they played, they would immediately become Archon,
Well, yeah,
right?
and that's where we have to put a floor. So, first example is Archon's unweighted, but Ancient is weighted. So you see Legend 3 at 0 if you use a point system instead of exactly
When you have
average
the Archon
MMR.
unweighted, do you have the semi-weighted format or the fully weighted?
I have 3 up. So if you look at the stream, because I added one where Ancient is super weighted, Ancient is slightly weighted with no Archon, and then I put yours with Archon weighted and Ancient weighted. So the first one, we go 0, 1, 2. Ancient 1, because maybe you should start going to intermediate at this point. But I understand if you're in a team that is low MMR and you just like playing with them. Well,
You could be like fought PP, right?
yeah.
That team had one player hit Ancient 1,
Hmm.
and they had to immediately jump up to Intermediate. They
Yeah.
eventually had to get Carl the next season because one of their players couldn't play.
Yeah.
And that again made them more competitive Intermediate, but they still only won 3 games.
Well, I remember subbing in for him when they didn't have Carl, and let me tell you, it was rough. First
Yeah.
off, I sucked ass because I was like, "You guys really want me to stand in? Like, I haven't played in like a month." This is
They
even
just needed
before
anyone, dude. They didn't
they
have anyone to play.
they had nobody. We played. We got dumpstered. It's none of their fault. It was like such an MMR disadvantage. But Ancient One, you know what? 3.5. So you are worth a little bit more than Legend 5. It's instead of 1, it's 1.5. Ancient 2, 5 points. You're gonna need some Archons or something to replace them, and then Ancient 3, which was recommended. And you know what? I go back and forth with this. Should an Ancient 3 really be playing in Contender? Gambit
Yeah.
says no. I'm like, you know what? I figure what if he has 4 Archon friends and he really wants to play with them, and you know what? These scenarios do happen. I think that Ancient 3 should be allowed.
I have no problem with an Ancient 3, again, assuming weights.
Yeah.
I think in a pure average sense, I would have a bigger problem with it. As soon as Max and Geo were like, we're gonna throw some weights on. Here's like they spitballed the basic
Mhm.
idea of 50% extra and 50% less for Archon, or for Ancient and Archon respectively. I was way more on board. I was like, honestly, I was like, now I'm okay with it because now again to balance out an Ancient 3 in their proposed system, which is the third option, you would need an Archon 3 and an Archon 4 just to balance out one player to
So
balance back out of the Legend 3 average.
yes, with Archon being weighted, you know.
Which also makes playing with 2 Ancient 3s impossible, which I think was the most key thing.
So I even changed it slightly to heavier weight on ancient players is the second one. I didn't show you this one, Gambit, where Archon is still
You
negative
showed me that
5
one. I do like that one.
because I don't think Archon players should be punished for playing with ancients.
It,
Well, I don't. I think ancient player. Wait, let me rephrase this. Ancient players should be punished. I don't think Archon players should be.
Archons shouldn't be punished for playing in Contender. I agree with
So
that.
and you know what? This can even change to like ancient one is
I'm gonna
even higher.
I'm gonna say one thing too, and it might blow your mind. Hopefully, not too much.
Hmm.
About how good you're just the heavier weight on ancient players, but no weights on Archon is actually under the current system of what was initially proposed, which is again the third one. It would actually be in everyone like if you're forming a team, it would be in your best interest to pick up an ancient 3 and then pick up a couple legend 1s. If you wanted to play with someone who's like, let's just say ancient 2.
Okay.
If you wanted to play someone with ancient 2, you could just grab 2 legend 1s and a legend 2 and you're back at 0
It,
instead of grabbing archons, because archons have diminishing returns, right? Because of the way that they were weighted inversely.
you're talking about the third one?
The third one, yeah.
Yeah, and the third one. And this is the one they kind of recommended. I just
I think yours is actually more balanced for punishing ancient players.
like I just don't think uh I just don't want to punish archons where if you have
Right.
a bunch of like legend 5s wanting to make a team.
Because the other thing too is if you're in the third bracket, right?
Mhm.
If you pick up an ancient, it's actually not that beneficial for you to just say, I'm just gonna grab 2 archons. In the others, it's like, well, they're all weighted equally. So like any player that I can get to take off some points for like my +8 or +6.5, I'll just take them. But in the third one, it's actually better for you to grab legend players because they don't have the diminishing returns on their badge decreasing. Right? Because between a legend 1 and an Archon 5, you only get half of a point off. Whereas in between a legend 1
Mhm.
and legend 2, you get a full point off, right?
Well, that's the other thing I was trying to cuz my issue with this one was that now archons kind of suck to grab.
Right.
So I was trying to change it where it's actually ancient players suck to grab even more. Like, yeah,
Right.
6.5 sucks, and yeah, now it's going to be hard to average it out. But I didn't want like legend teams that are like legend 5s and 4s that
They
want to
should
grab
still
an
be allowed
Archon
to play
3
with archons, with like
easier.
limited to no restrict. Like they shouldn't be again hindered I like I said, I was more appreciative after I saw your reweights. Again, just not weighting the Archon players. I think that's good. I think either of the first two would be fine. I would probably vote, like if I had to vote, I would probably vote on the second one because I don't think.
Yeah, me too.
I think if you're ancient, you shouldn't be trying to play in contender in general. But I think it's totally fine as long as your stack is the right MMR roughly.
Well, believe it or not, with this, the only difference is now legend players can pick up Archons easier,
Yeah,
and between these two. This
more
actually doesn't
legend fours
really.
and fives can make stacks without feeling like they're in the wrong bracket.
Yeah, believe it or not, Ancient 3 and an Archon 3 would be weighted as a +3 in this system and a +3 in this system. The only difference is now legends can pick up Archons easier.
Right.
And even in like an Ancient 1, 4. And these can change. If people are like, oh, too many Ancients, and listen, this isn't. One season, after one season, we can move the 0 point over one, or we can change how the point system works. I'm good, honestly, with either of these two. I actually don't like this one I proposed because I kind of, after I showed
Mhm.
it to you, I kind of realized, oh wait, honestly, picking up ancients are pretty easy with -5.
Yeah,
I'm
it
like,
makes it easier, right?
what if I increase it to 8? What if I just go
You
up
make it
2?
just as difficult
Yeah.
for ancient players to play, right?
hmm
Because um like as far as like 1-to-1 getting the best bang for your buck, there is no best bang for your buck if you're in the second one, right? It's just pick up the players you want to pick up and meet their requirements. And in the third one, it's like, well, diminishing returns on Archon players because they're weighted less. It's better for me to grab legend players. It's like, okay, well, in the first one, it's better for me to grab Archon players again because just for one value, they're really good. But
Yeah, so essentially the first one really benefits you picking up archons if you're a couple ancients, and that's not what we're trying to do with contenders. So I don't like the first one. Like that was my first proposed
right,
one to you, where I'm like, what if we do ancient weights? And then I kind of thought about it. Let's not. And like I said, I don't think we should be screwing over archon players. I feel like if you have a team of archons and legends, they should be able to make a good enough team. Because I was kind of like going through teams in my head. I'm like, hey, well, if these legends want to pick up this archon, they're kind of hurting there. But maybe that would be another min maxing. Like, is there a way? Like, is this system actually better? Is this at 6.5 than 8? Like these two? Because
say that one more time.
Well, I'm trying to figure out which one like would hurt more or be better for.
For for which demographic, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out like if I'm a contender team and I'm trying to maximize my team, like does either one do a better job at stopping players? Because two ancient threes is 16. Oh, you can't even do that. You cannot have two ancient threes and three
No,
archon threes on regardless of team. Uh, you could have an ancient three and ancient two,
yeah,
and
you could
then
have an ancient 3 and an ancient 2 in the middle one. You couldn't have that in the bottom one. You'd have to have an ancient 3 and an ancient 1.
but that ancient three and ancient two now need two archon threes and one archon four.
Um,
See my
in the middle one, yeah.
mhm. See, my thing is, I was trying to figure out. I don't want to punish like legends, but I guess like both right now, both lineups, if they had three legend fives, uh, that's +6 on both on the top one. You could just get, I guess.
You could get 2 ancient 3s and you could get a couple Archon 3s in the top one.
Well, the
And
top
you
one's the
you could
worst
get like
one.
another legend player as well.
This is the worst one. We're not even showing this anymore. This is
Get it out of here.
get it out of here. These are the two I kind of recommend. I think there's pros and cons slightly for both. Uh, if I
So
had
the
more time
middle
before
one
this, I would have gave some examples.
punishes Archons less, which
hmm
means legend 5s are more welcome, which I think is totally fine. However, you can min max a little bit more, and the bottom one is pretty much just limiting min maxing in general. Um, and it's really just promoting a lower average league.
Yeah, see, my thing is, I don't think a team that wants Archon should be punished. That's why I was trying to. And you know what? We can
Yeah,
even change the point system to
so
ancient
you
one is
can't have
4.5.
two A3s. You could have let's get like an extreme going here.
Yeah.
You could have two ancient ones and a legend 5. This would be a fairly extreme, and then two Archon 3s. That
I'll
would
be
be
real.
plus 10 and then minus 10.
And can't you do that with the other league too, or no? 7. So in the bottom league, that'd be
No,
9 points.
you could not do that in the other one.
Oh yeah, you can.
Two ancient ones, a legend 5, and two Archon 3s?
7, 9, and in the other one, you can have 2 Archon 3s and
No.
uh. Oh yeah, you can't. So I guess the extreme would be 2 ancient ones and a legend 5 and 2 Archon 3s, and in my potential one, and
Or
the other one you can't.
probably the closest extreme we can get is um because again, when you hit ancient, you're getting super punished by the weights, right?
Mhm.
Um, like that's the whole point of weights is to keep you down, right? Not to like to make it harder for you to get in. So the real extremes, the real min maxing, would be with Legend 5 players.
Yeah, Legend 5 has the most value.
So how many Legend 5 players could you fit in with Archon 3s? Because again, that would be the true min maxing. Like, yeah, you could get a couple ancient ones, like you could get two ancient ones, a Legend 5 and two Archon 3s in the top one, right? But you could also get three Legend 5s, one Archon 3, and then one Legend 2.
Yeah. And then on the other
Like you're
one,
swapping out an ancient one for Legend 5 and swapping out an Archon 3 for a Legend 2.
yeah, so I guess the difference is Legend 2 and Archon 5. If you had 3 Legend 5s on a team,
Yeah,
my top one allows you to get a Legend 2, and the bottom one allows you an Archon 5.
right.
You
That sounds
know,
right.
and to me, those teams look quite similar.
To me, there's not a huge difference, and one of them is punished more for having ancients over the other. So like again, because min max, so on the top one, min
Mhm.
maxing is most efficient with Legend 5s, probably right because you're punished way more for ancients, and in the bottom one, min maxing is pretty efficient with ancient 1 and 2s just because they're still not that bad. Like
Yeah,
you could get an ancient one, you could get a couple ancient 1 players for just an Archon 3.
yeah. If you let's just say
Like
you
those are
had,
1-for-1 trades, right?
yeah, if you did 2 Ancient Ones, 2 Archon 3s, and a Legend 3, that's the bottom. You know, I guess in the top one you can do 2 Ancient Ones, an Archon 3 and an Archon 5, and a Legend 3. So it seems like my top one doesn't punish Archons as much, where you can kind of get that extra kind of player in the
It's
middle.
really, I think the top one's good because it incentivizes more people in the legend bracket to stay in contender and more people in the ancient bracket to move up and find a new team.
Might
Which
have.
should be the case in general anyway.
Well, and the current system of this past season and seasons before did not encourage going to a next division, I'd
So
say.
okay, real quick too. So I showed you the list, right? Of Routers of Rohan. They were right at 0. Why? Because they have an ancient 3 player.
Mm, okay.
But the rest of their team balances out under the weighted system just down to 0.
Okay.
They didn't finish super well. They finished like 6-6 at best. I also had these in order of the where they finished. So they finished.
Oh, did you? Let me
They had
just
ninth, 8th or ninth. It looks like 8th. They finished middle of the pack with one ancient 3 player.
oh,
Um,
look at
and this
that
is
right
also
there.
just to say because there's currently some argument and feedback about how people are apparently way focused on the max rank. These are in order. Routers of Rohan had an ancient 3 player. They are still eligible to play. This is where they finished the season. Every team below from PSGS down was eligible, right?
Yeah.
So you're talking about like again, just in feedback right now, like there's people talking about how an ancient 3 player is going to make the difference in contender. No, he's not. I'm looking at him right now. He forms middle of the pack with this current team of all the teams that are still eligible.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to mention is some people were saying that we're going to break up a bunch of teams. No, we
That's not gonna
the
happen.
2
That's
teams at the very top were going to break up anyways with the old way.
yeah.
This new system shows all these teams get to stay together, and I think 1 or 2 teams actually wouldn't. We'd actually have more teams forced to break up with the current system. So it's kind of funny that some people suggest, "Oh, we're breaking up more teams." Actually, this system keeps more teams together because they have such a wide MMR range where you have 1 or 2 ancients. Now, certain teams, will still break up and everything, form new ones, but it's just kind of funny. The argument was, "We're breaking up teams." We're not actually. 12 out of 14 can stay together. I think 8 or 9 of them could. The past rules. I did not look. I'm just taking a guess.
Oh, sorry, say that one more time.
Uh,
I'm still reading through feedback, just catching up a little bit. It's
mm,
stuff's happening right now, so
is it? Do you think?
yeah.
Damn.
I mean, I brought up one of the situations right now. They're talking about how, again, just min-maxing, like, in the
Dude,
contender situation, how an Ancient 3 player is going to, quote, unquote, "make the difference." This was a mid laner, by the way, that was Ancient 3. Um, again, did not make the difference for his team. They finished middle of the pack, but go ahead, ask me that question one more time.
oh no, I was just making. No, I wasn't really asking a question. I was more making a
Okay.
statement that more teams would be forced to break up if we went to the last system. This actually
Correct,
keeps a
correct.
lot of teams together
Um
because you don't have that one guy fully
So
ranking up.
just looking at this right now on your stream, right?
Hmm.
TBD forced to break up. Sol Invictus forced to break up 2 ancient players. Grin Reavers technically has 1 ancient player, but they're allowed in the season. PZR would be fine. MTL had an ancient player, but he's back down to legend. Wasted Youth, I believe, is all legend except for Lava, maybe. No, I think they're all legend actually. I think they'd be fine. Rados of Rohan would have to break up. Fought P would always be fine. Probably still eligible for Archon. Kobolds would be fine. ROT would be fine. Sabers would be fine. Slavic Bakers would have to break up. They had an Ancient One support at one point.
Yeah.
And Helmets On would be fine. So roughly like 4 or 5 teams that we're talking would have to, just in this current rule set, would have to disband. And now they get to play another season because their average is still absolutely fine. And again, I think the average system just encourages people to stay with who you're playing, have fun with it. Because again, a lot of these teams that are going to break up anyway were at the top. Some of these teams that, like the teams that would have to break up anyway in the average system, are at the top, right? It would only make sense that if they're going to break up in the old system and the new system, they're top dogs, right?
Yeah.
And then you have these other teams. None of these other teams that finished kind of up here would have to break up. Like Grin Reavers would still be eligible under both. PZR eligible under both. MTL eligible under both. Wasted Youth eligible under both. Rados of Rohan is the first team that would have to break up under the old system, but not the new one. And granted, that's just barely. Like again, most of the teams where you'd have people that would you'd require to split up were either middle of the pack or lower tier teams. Um, or I mean, Grin Reavers was up here, I guess, but they got knocked out fairly quick. So
Hmm. Yeah, but this is just nice to see these teams and be like, you know what? Here's proof. So, and this video is about to provide information, remove the misinformation that some people are showing. Some statements that people have posted in feedback that I'm sorry are completely wrong, and I'm not saying those people are stupid or anything. You know, they didn't do the research. I didn't even do full on research. Gambit did some of this for me, so I appreciate that. But there is something else I wanted to discuss, Gambit.
mhm.
Oh, God,
Oh, is there something else I want to discuss? I was
no,
about
no,
to put
me.
in feedback. Huh?
I was going to ask about Ancient 4 and 5. Right now, our system allows people to level up to Ancient 5. Divine 1, revamped got removed. Personally, I kind of do agree
Are
with
we
that.
talking about contenders still?
Contender still.
Okay.
So in contender, just keeping it there. Uh, do 4 win a team? What average? So if it Legend 3 is the average you enter the league, is Ancient 1 the average a team has to move up a league or is no longer valid? Like, what's kind of that cap where you
So
can't play in the league anymore? And just one other thing, do, do you go off of weights or do you go off of team average? So would you say once a team hits Ancient One average, it is completely over? Or would you go off of the weights where, oh, if you're an Ancient 5, now you're worth a 12
So
to
I'm
your
gonna I'm
team?
gonna have two takes on this
Hmm.
because we've had this problem in pack already. And we fixed it with doing this. So one of my takes is you should always have most of that team be eligible for the bracket.
Hmm.
So, i.e., if you're in the contender league, you should not have 3 players hit ancient. I think doesn't matter if you have 3 ancient 1s and say 2 archon 2s or whatever. This is why I didn't like averages initially. Is because you could have in a legend 3 average league, you could have a basically a team comprised mostly of ancient players.
Hmm.
I think that should be an immediate red flag. Um, I think you would probably go with weighted averages, and you'd have to have the 0 points at a legend 5 or ancient 1, and it'd have to be that breaking point with the weighted averages. Would be my guess on, like, again, the best way to do that if you're gonna allow averages and like something like this to work.
Well, yeah, I was figuring depending on regardless of what system, let's say Ancient 3, even if you leave the 0 point, believe it or not, in Legend 3, and if you give Ancient 4 and Ancient 5 weighted points, so Ancient 5, let's say, is 12 in my system, or 9.5 in the system you provided me.
Mhm.
If we don't know those numbers, but I'm saying mine we're going up by 2 years, we're going by 1.5. Let's just say that was
Right.
left alone. So once, and let's just say I should just show my screen again. So my thing is max MMR max average for my system would be A1 plus 4. If your average is over 4, like 4.2, I don't care. You're gone. And then in yours, and we could debate on this too, H1
Oh, yeah, that would work. Something like that.
3.5. Once you're past 3.5, it is over. Or not even past. Once you hit 3.5, if your team hits a perfect Ancient One average, so if you're 3.5, it is over. 3.4, you're safe. And I'm recommending, you know,
So yeah, that'd have to be an average though too. So you're dividing that number by 5, like whatever their
yes.
overall plus minus is.
Yeah, and I also do think Divine One GTFO. So
Yeah.
that's
No,
my
I
opinion.
think I think that's definitely a very fair cutting point. I mean, it happened to us,
Yeah.
and my only complaint when it did happen to us is why didn't it happen sooner? Like, again, because at the time it was a Legend 5 capped league, and so if I'm having a player grind, yeah, that's totally cool. He did it 100%, got his rank legitimately by just queuing way too much ranked Dota in a game in a day, because of COVID stuff. But it's like, why? Because again, I was, as a captain, I was frustrated because he got removed the week of our first week of playoffs, and I was like, why couldn't you remove him like 2 weeks ago so I could start looking for a new player before playoffs? But
Listen, Gambit, you think your scenario is bad? Carl, 2 hours before the grand finals, got told he was not allowed to play because he was an Ancient One in a Legend 5 cap league. He was told he was not allowed to play, and the team we were facing, who Bry Guy was on, and Bry Guy told me it wasn't him. 2 of his players refused to play us if we didn't have him. And by the way, I'm just letting you know why they didn't want to play us is because we kicked their asses in scrims. Like we 2-0'd them, they weren't even close. And that year they were playing in 2 leagues. One where they had a different mid player, and then the other league their mid player was Ancient 2. And I even said you can play with their mid player that's Ancient 2. And by the way, I just want to say the scrims were against their mid player that was Ancient 2. We fucking destroyed them, and that is why they didn't want to play against us. I'm still so mad. I'll mention it whenever I can. But you think yours was bad having a Divine One, get kicked out at the start of
I mean, only
playoffs?
because I said it didn't matter, and then we got an Archon 5 support and won. So
Yeah, and you guys did end up winning. But
yeah, we did win that season.
I forfeited the grand finals. I gave it to HDYK, which is ROT, and we 2
Yep.
0'd ROT. And the second game against ROT, I think
Who was
ROT
ancient on
forfeited.
HDYK?
No, they weren't
Johnny?
ancient. This is a contender team.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
A contender team. Uh, HDYK, we 2-0'd them. We said, hey, HDYK, can you play against these guys? I refuse to play against them. This is ridiculous. And I don't feel like the admins even heard my side of the story or anything like that. They just made a decision and nothing. They are getting better at like being more open and actually, discussing stuff and being like, maybe not.
Mhm.
But regardless, H2YK 2-0'd them. And you know what? I kind of feel that's my contender W, because I 2-0'd them. I 2-0'd. I forget what their team was called back then. We 2-0'd them in a scrim very convincingly. We 2-0'd to HDYK in officials, and then HDYK 2-0'd Bry Guy's team. So, I'm just saying, you think you were screwed? I was screwed, man. So, but that's would you go off of weighting though for the averages? I'm just confirming you'd agree to
Um,
give like Ancient 4 and Ancient 5, 8 and 10. So if your point
yes,
system is
yes.
over the
Whatever the basis for the point
yeah.
system, whether it's a 50% increase per badge level or if it's a 100% increase in yours, I think you still go with it and you just keep it going up, up to Ancient 5. I think if you're Divine 1, you get out,
Mhm.
and you just keep your badge below a certain average during the season. It doesn't even have to be like it again, like stated by the admins, in my opinion. It should be something it should just be universally,
No.
known by everyone.
Oh,
Like
that's the other
you
thing.
shouldn't want an
Yeah.
Ancient 1 average team in your Legend 3 and below average league by the end of the season.
No, you definitely don't. And what, believe it or not, with the weighting we have, technically a team would be below still ancient if we went off of weightings, if we didn't go off of like team average. So I'm up for debate of team average or the weighting system where ancients are heavier. And
Mhm.
and technically speaking, this system would be worse for people that are climbing into ancient. So in a way, I think that
Right.
could be better.
It's like if you want to play with your friends, sure, but your friends better be
Hmm.
pretty bad.
Yeah, I think this would punish some maxers, honestly, if we even left it at
Yeah.
waiting. So, oh, you went up, 1,000
You can
MMR,
still
you're
play
still
if you want,
fine.
yeah.
But there does come a point where you got these ancient players, and we're not trying to
I don't
punish you
need Jared
guys.
Cabra in intermediate anymore. He's Divine 4, maybe 5. I can't remember where he is.
Yeah, get Jarrah out of intermediate, get him in divine. Uh,
Jerry's too good.
and you know what? You touched the most important thing. Rules need to be concrete. So whatever rule set they come out with, they need 3 different admins, or they need someone like you, Gambit, or myself that are potentially making a team. Well, I'm not going to make a team, but are like, how can I ruin this system? What can I do to make the system benefit me 100%? You
Oh,
know,
I did that when Mozart proposed a rule, and I was like, "Well, I would just do this." And he's like, "Well, that'd be cheating." I go, "No, not in your current rule set. It wouldn't be."
well, yeah,
It was
that's
when he
in
was
yeah.
discussing 1-for-1 stand-ins over the current rule set. And I was like, "Well, I would just sign up with an Ancient 5 and call him my real player, and then that way I could always replace him with an Ancient 5 or below."
Well,
And he's like, "But he would never play." And I'm like, "It doesn't matter. I'm getting someone to stand in every game."
I actually won't lie. I
I
thought
love
about that
breaking
when I
rules.
when I read the rule, because I'm ancient one right now. I can't stand in for
Mhm.
a team, even like for FOTP. I can't stand in for
Oh
Fellowship of
yeah.
the Ping, even though they're ridiculously low MMR. I don't think I change as much, especially because I'm not an ancient one right now. But I can't stand in for them, so it kind of sucks. But
Mm.
what stops them from Fireman? You're on a roster now. We're always gonna use a stand-in, But
Yeah, exactly. Like if they just signed up with you and like,
mhm.
again, like that'd be one of the ways I would break the rules. Just loopholes that I find when I read stuff. Like that's usually what I like to do. And then people are like, "Well, why would you do that?" I'm like, "I'm not saying I would want to do it. I'm just saying someone else might."
Well, listen, you got to find the loopholes, because if you don't, someone else will. And that's where the admins definitely need someone to be like, hey, maybe there's a flaw in your rule. Can we, before we go, we talk about the pause rule? I'm not even talking about what happened. I think
Sure,
the
we can talk
pause
about the
rule,
pause rule.
first off, admin decision, the worst ever. regardless, we're moving on about that. I'm getting that out of the way. I just think the ruling was horrible. Pause rule needs to be updated. I don't think pauses should be limited to 3 in a game. I think we should go to what top leagues do online. Generally, they have 15 minutes of max pause time. Once you hit that, you're done. I feel like we shouldn't be punishing someone if there's a storm nearby and they disconnect twice and use 2
Mhm.
pauses for 20 seconds. Why is that team now only limited to 1 pause? That's 3 minutes, by the way, apparently. How you read those rules, I actually agree with Talus's interpretation. And by the way, I want Soy Boys to lose. I'm just putting it out there. I told them straight to their face,
I don't
I
agree
hate
with
their team.
Dallas's interpretation of the rules. I think the
But
rules are very
mm,
explicitly written in the correct way. But I do have some thoughts about why I don't like the
well, I
rules.
really don't like the rules. And
Yeah,
only 3 pauses in a game.
that's where I yeah. So
Listen, I understand that you
you're
can
talking to the
interpret the
wrong
rules
guy
slightly
about this
different.
because I've already talked to at least a dozen people over this.
That is okay.
Um, no, I'll reiterate it as many times
Hmm.
as I need to because I think. But so me and Claire talked about this for a good 20 minutes because we've both run leagues before. We
Yes.
both have rule sets. We actually, when this came up, we both said, I said rather, I was like, I wonder what both of our rule sets from leagues we have made rules for say. I look at Learn Dota 2 League, which is league that Claire kind of started, and I looked at the rules. 10 minutes of total pause time per match. Very understandable.
Hmm.
No limits on pause time, just 10 minutes of pause time. I think RD12 is the same. I went to look at Pack. Pack says 10 minutes of pause time per match. It's very simple rule that is apparently universal and just a good number to pick from. And I don't know why 82L hasn't just done the exact same thing.
I listen. I do understand that that rule can be interpreted, and I do understand why the admins made that ruling. Just seems a little ridiculous when their pause time wasn't actually even that much. Shame
Yeah.
on PSGS. Fuck you guys. Sorry, sorry, sorry. I'm a little ticked off about it, but and like I said, I don't want Soy Invictus to win. I want him to lose.
Listen, it doesn't really matter. I mean, like,
Fortunately, it was double limb, and now they get to play in the lower
right.
bracket. But you
Uh,
know,
the Reddit post is really funny about how he got cheated
oh,
when he was still in the tournament, but we shouldn't get too much into
I
this.
fucking hate the Reddit post. Reddit post guy, you're completely wrong. Listen, all I am agreeing with is that I don't think Talus's team. I disagree with the ruling. What that guy did on Reddit, dumbest thing ever, and like completely wrong. Like you know what? For that reason, the ruling should stand because that Reddit post is so bad. Just to let you know, that's the only reason why I agree with the ruling is because of that Reddit post. It's so stupid
Yeah.
and so like misinformed and everything. But I do agree with you. 10 minutes, and I think pro players and their matches are 15 minutes a match.
And here's the thing, in
Hmm.
pro players, believe it or not, they usually don't rulebook.
Well, I've watched a there it was in
There's
2020
a PPD
Evo.
instance that I'm thinking of where there's a couple rulebook, but that was also PPD being PPD.
But
So
there was a recent EG in 2020. I forget which NA team they were facing. One of the players disconnected. EG started using their own pause time for that team. I think it might have been Quincy Crew, and they're like,
mm.
"Oh," and I think
Yeah,
I
because they
forget
know
if it
each
was
other.
10 or 15, and EG's
Yeah,
like, "Okay, we can give you X amount of our minutes because we still need a minute in case our
yeah,
player disconnects." And like the admins, the AG's like, "We want to use our time to make this match fair."
right. I
You
mean,
know.
like competitive integrity, I think is a very key part of any league,
Hmm.
and for the most part, 82L does a really good job of it.
Hmm.
And I say 82L, really, it's dependent on the community. Like it's not dependent on the admins to say, oh, you guys need to make sure you guys have moral integrity when it comes to playing your friends. Like this is actually one of the reasons why I'm coming back to contenders because I remember I made a lot of friends, like the PZR boys, the FOTP boys. You have the Sabers. Actually, I could just bring up the list. Like, there's so many people that I enjoyed playing with my first time playing in contender that I was just like, dude, oh my gosh, like these people are so much nicer. They're so much like more respectful, and it's like again, I want to be able to reciprocate that and like give them the same amount of respect and patience that they've given me, and it's just a better experience. Like Wasted Youth, MTL, um, again, ROT I was already good friends with. Slavic Baker's got a couple people I know. Like there's like I know almost every captain in Contender, and it's just like it's a more homey experience
I
at
will
this
say
point.
one thing for me about the pauses, and I've had that, is I've had teams pause multiple times, and I'm like, yeah, I just give you 9 minutes. I've never thought about pauses like three
Right.
pauses. I just always gave them 9 minutes, and I think there's only been twice where I rule booked a team, because honestly, they pissed me off. One team
Mhm.
actually, I was waiting for them online, and I forget what team it is. This is from many seasons ago, and I said, "Hey guys, like we've already been waiting like 20, 25 minutes,
Yep.
like another 5, and I'm gonna call it." And one of the players I forget what name he called me in chat, and I was like, you know what? We're just gonna take the forfeits. We're gonna go now. Like I said, like you guys are already running 25 minutes late. I said 5 more minutes, and we're just gonna take the forfeit because I don't think I should be waiting half an hour for someone. And
Right.
then the guy insulted me, and it really pissed me off. And I took the free W. And another time on pauses, I think we waited 15 minutes for him, and I said, "Listen, we got to move on."
Mhm.
Because personally, for me, I like playing the games, but people got to show some respect. And I understand I'm a controversial person sometimes. You know, I've made some
Right,
videos,
for sure. I mean, it happens, right? Like
outspoken, but outspoken, but I do have some competitive integrity. If you show me some respect, I'll show you some respect. Especially, I I I, I I definitely don't want to take a free W in the playoffs
let's see.
off of pauses.
So let's see if I can that so again, just because
Yeah.
I like people in Contender real quick.
Hmm.
Um this is I'll show it to you. You can verify it on stream if you'd like. This is the chat log. You may barely be able to see it. Um but me and Pog in our first grand final series, this is the first game. There was an issue
Second,
in the middle
second,
of the game.
just second. Music started playing. Is that from your speaker?
Is it G-Eazy?
Yeah, I'm hearing your music right now, dude.
Yeah, I can pause it real quick.
Dude, we're I'm gonna get copyright strike now. I hope you're happy. I hope you're happy. My YouTube video, people are
No, it's
gonna
okay.
see this
It
part.
wasn't
It's
10
gonna be
seconds. It
nothing.
wasn't 10 seconds.
No, it's all good. Continue though.
Okay. But again, this I took it off by the way, so it's hopefully it's okay now. But um, we waited for them for 28 minutes before we finally said okay, yeah, we've probably waited long enough. There was a time also in intermediate league where a team got time zones mixed up. TMOs to be specific, because we said EST and it was daylight savings time, and so they were using an EST clock to try to convert everything. Um, and again, like it was technically EDT, but like when you're in the states, you don't think about that kind of
Hmm.
stuff about how like other areas might not be thinking about daylight savings, and so you just say EST even if it's EDT or not. Um, but again, we waited like 45 minutes for them to show up just because we wanted to play Dota. Like I think every team should just be trying to play Dota against their full stacks with their full stacks, and there really shouldn't be any rule booking involved. Like it should just I don't understand some of these teams that are like I want to get the most out of my rules. It's like just play the game, just have fun. It's not like no one's going pro and contender
Yeah,
except for logical. Logical might do it, but
he was mostly an intermediate guy. He was an intermediate guy. I hope he does.
he
Logical
started
is a
in
great guy.
contender, dude.
Well, no, I believe that. I remember
That's
I casted his Snowflake team, man.
yeah.
I played RT2L one season, and he played bid for our team, subbed in, and we won. It was great. That was our only win. You know, we're at an hour and 43 minutes. God damn it, Gambit. The only positive of this is people have told me, you know what, they listen to these videos when they're driving to work for 45 minutes. So at least now they have
Now he
a
can drive there
drive
and back.
and back. Listen to Gambit and I, but I agree. Try limit your rule booking, guys, and pause rule change. Average MMRs are good. I hope that's what this video taught you. That's all. I'm trying to inform people that a lot of teams don't have to change, and the teams that do need to change were too good for their division, anyways.
Yeah, they're
Uh,
gonna have to change under either rule, so it doesn't really affect them in that way.
yes, you know, like I'm happy. I think this was good. I think this is beneficial. A little longer than I wanted to, but you know what? We got it done, and
Yeah.
people now can agree, disagree. This will be up on YouTube because I didn't even post this on Twitch. Like it's on Twitch, but I didn't let anybody know I was streaming it. Though apparently we have 5 viewers, so one or two people got the deets already. Anything you want to say before I tell
No,
everybody I'm going? Nothing, Gambit.
it's all you, fiery lad.
Okay, well, thank you for coming on, Gambit. You know, it's good. It's nice to talk to someone instead of just giving my only my opinion and force my opinion on everybody. At least there's some conversation, different points. I think this was really constructive, to be honest. A little longer than I wanted to, but
Hey,
uh,
but we got all the information we wanted, so that all's
yeah,
well that ends well.
exactly. Thank you all for watching. And lastly, Fireside might come back for season 31. Undecided. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Gambit.